Battle Line Podcast. We are coming off of Memorial Day weekend here. Hope you guys enjoyed, but I figured what could be more appropriate than recognizing some of our friends and some of our heroes that we lost for this Memorial Day in recognition of that. Usually it's guys that we've lost in combat, but a guy that we lost coming home was a dear friend to Chris and myself, and that's none other than Drew Dwyer. So here's a best friend of Drew Dwyer, John Jackson, talking about his love and his friendship of our great friend, Drew Dwyer. The reason this all happened basically is because, 2 years ago, just recently, our great friend of all three of ours, Drew Dwyer, passed away. For those who don't know, Marine, CIA, and a lot of people, I think, know Drew's background from his writings or from podcasts he did. Some people listen to this show now don't know Drew, and I think they want to know more about Drew. And we get great feedback when I post these things remembering him. And then I saw John's comment where John said, Drew literally saved my life. Yeah. And I was like, I have to hear that story. So it's just great to have you on, man.
Sure. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks, brother. We appreciate you coming on and hope we can, take over the podcast here and because I like to hear your story with Drew because I knew Drew very well.
Sure.
Him and I on GRS. And then after, I got to know him even better, to be honest with you, after the agency, because, he was one of the guys that in this world of shit, which is public media, public figure, and all that other stuff, shit that comes with the stuff that took place after, once the book came out and the movie came out. He was one of the, a handful of people I could probably count on one hand that would still stay genuine, that stayed.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
That did, but still was, and I could tell was still battling his own inner demons, but didn't ever let that affect his relationship with people. He was still good to people,
Right.
And you don't,
absolutely.
Man, you don't find that in this public figure, social media, Hollywood, whatever you want to call it, world, when people are just having good days. And he was able to maintain that on even his bad days. So, I want to hear how he helped you, brother, and your relationship with him. And I think the listeners would like to hear that as well. But we got to wait for Ian to give us the go ahead. So, okay, start talking. We can talk about it now.
No, we're recording. We're good. I'm always paranoid now. My mic sounds good because we were having technical.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, we're all good to go. I mean, I will tell the audience, just for some background. John let me know not only a longtime friend of Drew, but his best man during his wedding in Italy. You guys played minor league football together. And now you're currently a wide receiver coach at Stonebridge High School in Ashburn, Virginia, who were the state champions with you as coach. And I'm looking forward to getting into all of it. I didn't even know that Drew played minor league football, to be honest.
Yeah, that's where I met Drew. 2003. We had a little meeting at a restaurant, and in walks this guy wearing this police uniform and kind of gung ho. And there were a couple of guys like that walked in. He was just fresh out of work and walked in, and we immediately took to each other and introduced ourselves to each other, and we were fast friends. Played on the same side of defense. He had my back over the top. He was a safety. I was a cornerback, and he always had my back. Even after we stopped playing football, he was always there for me after that. So.
Yeah,
great guy.
That's another one reasons Drew and I had a good relationship because I played football through college as well and so it was something also we could talk about where,
sure.
Surprisingly, you would think in the special operations community, you have a lot of athletic guys that have played. That's not the truth. You find probably, I would say 15, 20% of the guys that have in the special operations community that actually played sports up through even not just high school level and they get smaller in the intercollegiate level.
Sure.
So, he was an athlete. I want to know some of your best memories because I love football and my dad coached throughout my childhood. I grew up on the football field.
Sure.
Some of your best memories with Drew playing, maybe some of the greatest, because being a defensive back, I was a free safety. My brother was a cornerback. And that's when we could hit people. We weren't targeting their heads, but you could clothesline them and just lay them out.
Absolutely.
Did you guys have any of those kind of hits where you guys came together and just nailed guys, and then you high five each other at the end of the?
So absolutely, we were an expansion team, so we had a lot of guys that had maybe come from other teams or
Sure.
hadn't played before together. So we had that struggle in the beginning. However, when Drew and I played on the same side, as I said, and I'd kind of turn around, give him a look, give him a nod when we knew we had a good receiver coming our way.
Yeah.
If something happened and he slipped by me or whatever the case may be, there were a couple times where there were some high-low impacts, that turned some guys end over end. But we really had a great rapport on the field and off the field. We had some away games where some of the younger guys would go into some drinking establishments and get into a little trouble.
Yeah.
So we had to go in there and kind of rescue those guys out of there and get them straight. So
I people realize, and that was a good prepping ground. I think Drew and I would talk about this. Sports and athletics was a good baseline to go in the special operations community. If people don't know, Drew was with Force Recon. He was, which is now MARSOC, which are the Raiders. They've changed their name, but they are part of the special operations community. And having that baseline of teamwork, like you talked about, just giving each other an eye, look at each other and say, okay, don't need to say a word. Just, you got it. Okay, I know what each other's going to do. Brother, that applied so much and gave me, I believed, an advantage once I started clearing rooms and doing assaults and doing small unit tactics, because that's essentially what you're doing with your teammates on a football field. It's small unit tactics, and it gets to a level that's extremely, it can be extremely dynamic, and it can be extremely vicious to the point of, before you're not crossing that line of killing somebody. And I'm not,
Sure.
There is a complete difference, but you do have that teamwork where you are, especially on the defensive side of the ball, especially when you're DBs and you got a shit talking receiver out there. Cause I was a shit talking receiver. I went to college and I played receiver. I was one of those other sides that you're like, okay, all right, I got this guy. All right, he's coming your way. And I remember there was a DB, a corner and a free safety that I played against where I was doing my talking and the DB let me go on purpose so the free safety could come up and he clotheslined the shit out of me. And my feet are up in the air. But that's the beauty of athletics. That's why I always tell you young guys out there, young people that want to join the military, want to go to special operations, play athletics, man, especially football and basketball. Play those things because you are developing your situational awareness, but you're also developing your teamwork. And it sounds like you guys did it. I mean, you're still doing it, obviously, at the high school level.
Yeah, we did have one game when we played minor league football together. I actually played against my cousin who had a team that was close in the area, who was pretty irate that I was not playing for his team. So Drew and I had to make a little pact that come hell or high water, we were not going to get scored on by this one particular team. My cousin actually moved out to wide receiver. He was a short, squatty running back. Moved out to wide receiver. We really got into it going down the field. I ended up intercepting the ball. Tossed it to Drew afterwards. Drew threw it back, and my cousin kind of hit him in the head. So it was just a great day. It was a great day.
That's good stuff, man. Go ahead.
So what was Drew's? I guess you'd say football career, but minor league football, was that after the Marine Corps and like in between contracting?
Yeah, it was. He was still a SPO at that point, so he had a little free time to get with us and work out playing football. So, yeah, that's what he was able to do in his free time.
That's just Drew, man, and being a SPO. But then he moved on and became a staff guy. Just so people are clear out there, Drew didn't contract. Drew was an actual staff team leader for GRS, and again, we'll get into that in a bit, but that having a GRS team leader that actually had experience within the special operations community, and then also having Drew just being Drew was something that you didn't see very often in the GRS community, because and you guys will love this. I know all you guys that follow the government and know how shady the government is. To be a team leader on the staff side with CIA, you don't have to meet the same requirements as a contractor. You don't have to have any special operations experience or any even military experience to be a team leader of guys that have 6, 7, 8 years of special operations experience. But that's the government for you. But Drew did, and he was one of the very few, which made him special on the GRS side of the house too. But again, we can get into that here in a bit. But it's just amazing what Drew did, and then doing SPO work and then doing minor league football in his spare time. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty good stuff.
It was pretty good stuff. Yeah, we actually had another guy that won't mention his name. He's still active, but he is another team leader, and he was our coach. He was one of our coaches on defense. So yeah.
That's awesome. Good, Ian. I mean, I cut you off, bro. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say it's like it's not surprising to me that, at least, in my experience, that you connected with Drew right away, because it was the same thing with me. I mean, most of my best friends in life are people I went way back to high school with and I still talk to regularly. Many of them actually elementary school. And Drew was like the last person I could say I met that was like later on in life and was truly one of my best friends. And for me, what it was, and I've wrote it in posts before, is just how genuine he was. He was not the type of guy who, I said it on the last show, but, when people die, unfortunately, and a lot of people will say everyone loved him. There was no one who who had a bad word to say about him. I actually wouldn't put Drew in that category, because I think the people who really liked him. But if he didn't get along with you, and there were people I worked with that he was just like, I don't like this guy, he let you know. There was no phony about him, and I liked that.
Absolutely. There were friends that I had that he met along the way. He's like, yeah, I don't know about that guy. I don't really trust that guy. So 9 times out of 10, he was correct. So yeah, he would definitely shoot from his hip. He'd tell it the way it was.
Tell me, before the football career or even during it, how did it become where your friendship blossomed, and then he became your best man? And walk us through that, if you could, your time, as succinct but as detailed as possible.
Sure. Talking
about that relationship, and then the best man, and then also I got to know what happened at the bachelor party and the wedding. At least much.
Sure. So after I met Drew and we started playing ball together, I actually took an early exit. A few years later, had a career-ending injury, so I needed to step away. Had a pretty bad leg break.
Wow. Yeah.
So I got that taken care of, and decided at that point I was ready to hang up my cleats. But we had always, weekends we were together hanging out. Even after that, doing all sorts of things, and he would always make the joke to me that he goes, when I get married, you're going to be my best man. And this was early on. And I was like, man, well, right now you're single. So you've got a long way to go. So when you find that person, we'll work it out. But in my head, I'm thinking, you've got 2 brothers and you don't need me as your best man. I'm just another dude. He goes, no, you're going to be my best man. And, fast forward to 2016 to his wedding, he asked me to be his best man. And I won't say that I was shocked, but I was really surprised because, he does have 2 brothers.
And we've had one of his brothers on the show before. Yeah. I mean, it's genuine, just like Drew.
Sure.
So, but that's so. Tell us about the bachelor party, or if anything happened.
So believe it or not, there wasn't really a bachelor party. We actually got together, and this was per Drew's wishes. He didn't want the whole bachelor party thing. We actually got together and took a road trip to Orange County Choppers.
Oh yeah,
had a I guess a backstage tour of the place, and spoke with some people with the show, and spent a few hours there looking at all the bikes and whatnot. And it was a great time. It was low key, just the way he wanted it. He didn't want a lot of pomp and circumstance. There were probably 5 people there.
Wow.
Including Drew, and my wife tagged along because the girls were going to do something and she wasn't really into that. She wanted to go see motorcycles, so we brought her along. So it really was a good time. So
was he a huge fan of the show? Because I didn't know that about him.
He was a huge fan of the show, and there were some other events when he was living in New York that he got a chance to hook up with those folks and Paul Senior and those folks. So he was a fan of the show.
There were definitely certain things in like music and television and media that Drew was just like a mega fan of. Like, I know for him, getting to go backstage at Linkin Park is one of those memories that he would constantly tell you was so awesome. And then way later on in life, he got to see like Ice Cube up front. He was like a big Ice Cube fan. So I'm not surprised that instead of a bachelor party, he's like, I'm a fan of the show. I want to meet these guys.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. They invited us up, and we took a road trip up there to upstate New York and had a great time.
What was, during the football years, but even after the marriage, your relationship with them, any stories? Because I knew Drew pretty well, and I knew, sure. But of course I lived miles and miles away from him, so it's not like we could hang out all the time. But sure. Drew's stories, after, and he left the agency and so forth. I guess I just kind of want to know what took place after, because really after the agency, you just saw Drew not really lost, but just sort of trying to figure things out. And, I want to keep this upbeat, but also,
sure.
We need to know people. It may help somebody else down the line that's just going through tough times to figure out a way to get out of them. Because Drew was always a fighter. I mean, Drew fought everything, and again, as I said, he had his demons. I'm not going to lie. I have my demons too. We actually were fighting our demons at the same time, talking to each other, trying to help each other. So, what did you see and how did you help? How did you help? Because we all helped.
Sure. So Drew was, and I don't get emotional about a lot of things. I get emotional about my family, and I get emotional about Drew. So his compassion for other people, even his professional life, doing what he did for a living, but coming home and his compassion for people, he wanted to help anyone that needed any kind of help. He would give you the shirt off his back. He would give you whatever he had to make sure that you were okay. And for me, I guess it was about 2008. We were still great friends. He was doing a lot of traveling. He was over in Afghanistan a lot. Wasn't home very often. We lived in the same town at that time. And for me, I was going through a very bad divorce, very, very bad custody battle. At the same time, my father, who was also my best friend, was dying, and eventually passed away. This was right around 2008.
So it's like all at the same time.
All at the same time. So it got to the point where I was actually looking for a place to live because I needed to separate myself from what was going on at home and that sort of thing. Made the big decision which affected me was because I felt like I left my kids. I knew that they would be okay, but I just wasn't in the house every day.
I understand. I went through a divorce too. I understand. Yeah.
Sure. That was the main thing for me. And, Drew and I were texting, and it was a late night for me, and he just happened to be up and said, "Hey brother, how you doing?" Sent me a text, and kind of started rattling off the things that were going on. And he said, "Well, look, dude," he goes, "my house is empty." He goes, "I'm not going to be back for months." He goes, "Here's a garage code. Go move into my place. I just need someone to make it look like it's lived in." I thought about it, and I said, "Well, I'll get back to you tomorrow, and we'll talk it out or whatnot." So got back to him the next day, and he goes, "I'm dead serious." He goes, "I want you to take your stuff and go to my house." Yeah. So I packed up what I had, and I went to his house, and I moved in. And even at that point, I had some place to stay, but I was still at what I thought was an all-time low. I didn't know how to rebound. My kids didn't want to come see me because they weren't in their house. They didn't. They knew Drew, but they didn't really know. Why was Daddy moving into his house? Why was this going on?
Hey, John, how old were they at the time?
Let's see. At the time, I had a high schooler. She was probably a freshman in high school. I had a middle schooler and an elementary school.
Okay, yeah, still.
So they were all pretty young. So at that point when my dad passed away, that was when I just hit rock bottom. You talk about fighting demons. Yeah. There was a lot of drinking going on just to try to kill the pain.
Just numb yourself.
All those, all those sort of things. Going to work, doing my day job, just kind of going through the motions of coming home, to a dark house. There's no one there, just me.
Yeah.
And I get daily texts from Drew every single day, telling me how good a person I was, how good a father I was, and that at some point this is all going to blow over, and it was going to make me a better human after that. And he was right. And I attribute him sending me that text and saying, "Hey, how you doing?" to saving my life, because had it not been for that, I don't know. And I can be honest with you guys, I don't know that I'd be here today, just because I was in such a dark place at that point.
That was our friend John Jackson from episode 87. If you want to go back in the archives and hear that full episode, talking about our friend Drew Dwyer. Believe it or not, we're coming very close to June 6th, which is not only D-Day, but 5 years since the loss of our very good friend Drew Dwyer, who did die of a heart attack on that day, a guy that we greatly miss. And I was wondering what we're going to do in recognition of that, because it's definitely something we don't want to not do something for. And I was looking at our email sent to battlelinepodcast@gmail.com, and someone who did serve with Drew in Jalalabad emailed me and was telling me about his friendship of Drew, a guy so many of us loved. And since he reached out and liked the fact that we had John on and we had Drew's brother on at one point, he just wanted to give us props for that. And I said, you should come on with us, because I didn't have anyone else to really share any news stories with Drew. So you can look forward to that the week of June 6th, as we remember 5 years since the loss of my good friend and Chris's good friend, Drew St. Dwyer. Before we continue, though, I want to recognize the people who make this show possible every single week. Fort Scott Munitions being one of those who's been with us and is a sponsor of every episode. They are a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition that is designed to tumble upon impact in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military-grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it will be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with each pull of the trigger. Fort Scott Munitions is available throughout privately owned businesses in all 50 states, but you'll get the best deal through us because they think so highly of us and we think so highly of them when you go to FSM.com and use the exclusive promo code BATTLELINE for 15% off your order. That's FSM.com. Promo code BATTLELINE for 15% off any ammo that you find there and any other items you see there. Only available to listeners of the Battle Line podcast. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battle Line Tactical, and the Battle Line podcast. So go do some shooting and shoot with Fort Scott. Also, if you are in the market for night vision, look no further than Photonis Defense. Now you can have the superpower to see in the dark with the Viper Binocular Night Vision System by Photonis Defense, which is the global leader in night vision solutions, providing more high-quality night vision capabilities than anyone. Military, law enforcement, and public safety end users utilize Photonis Defense solutions to give them the edge at night in tactical situations and rescue operations. Hunters, shooters, boaters, and enthusiasts can rely on the Photonis Defense Viper Binocular to become masters of darkness. The new Viper Binocular system carries the same features and benefits as the Photonis Defense Viper Monocular with a ruggedized body and harnesses the power of the Echo Intensifier tubes, giving you sharper images, reduced halo, and industry-leading ultra-fast auto-gating across the range of dynamic operating conditions. Visit PhotonisDefense.com for more information or look for Photonis Defense product options from your night vision dealer. That's PHOTONIS Defense.com. That's our great friends at Photonis. Now, someone that I know this audience greatly reveres is none other than Glenn Doherty, and a guy I worked for many years and still a friend of mine is Brandon Webb, Navy SEAL, who served with Glenn, was a friend of Glenn. And you know what? I'll give you a little note before getting to this clip. You'll notice, like, you'll wonder, because we've always been pretty much an uncensored show, except for some things here and there to accommodate YouTube. You'll be like, why is all this bleeped out? So that was when I first brought on Harold, our video editor, and we're trying to work around some issues with YouTube, how you guys may know, like, if you curse in the first few seconds of a video, you're not going to get monetized, and therefore less people are going to see it and that type of thing. And we were trying to figure that out. And we kind of went overboard at one point. So this is like early on when we brought Harold over, and we've figured it out now. We do like to keep the show uncensored. At the same time, I do kind of cringe when the cursing is used as a verbal crutch. I guess that's like a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, but which was not the case in this clip. So it's a little bit unnecessary beepage, if you will. But this is what I still had from that episode, and that's episode 198 with Brandon Webb. And this was really great insight from Brandon into what went down actually after the attacks in Benghazi as a friend of Glenn's, and dealing with the media firestorm, I guess you would say, that came out of the Benghazi attacks. So check this out. I know that Glenn Doherty was a great, would you say best friend of yours? Or
yeah, it was.
I met him weeks before Benghazi happened.
No, Glenn and I go way back to SEAL qualification training, and we were in the same platoon together. Then we were the two new guys that were selected because we're the better shots in the platoon, that our chief Dan came to us, said, "You guys are going to go to sniper school," and as new guys in the SEAL community, that wasn't a thing normally that happened to new guys. You had to do a deployment and get some experience.
Which Dan? Can you say his last name?
I don't
Did
think
he go work at Blackwater or anything like that?
I don't think Dan worked at Blackwater.
Okay.
His last name starts with a G.
Okay.
And he was a corpsman. Yeah, he was
Gotcha.
I'm thinking of when Chris Speck was on the show and said "Dirty Dan." Is that the same person?
I can say Simpson, Dirty Dan Simpson.
Yeah, no, he was different Dan.
Different Dan. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
different Dan.
I much he taught. I mean, he was a fucking great shooter. Dude taught me a lot about shooting.
And my Dan did too. Our Dan was amazing.
Must be the name, dude.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But so yeah, Glenn and I went to sniper school. Like, lived in a freaking dirt, mud, and piss together for 3 months. Did a platoon together, a whole 18-month workup cycle together. We both love the water and snow sports. He came to my dad. I have a really fun story. Maybe I'll tell you after Chris left. One of Glenn's friends that stayed with my dad in Wyoming when he was in Wyoming, because we used to go to my dad's house and ski. Glenn and I would go ski Grand Targhee. And this friend, the short version, my dad. I say, "Hey, Dad, one of Glenn's friends coming through. Can he stay at the house and ski?" Yeah. Well, the guy got so shit-faced the night before, like hit on my dad's neighbor, got in a fight with one of the neighbors, and then my dad comes down. One of my dad's friends is going to take this guy skiing, and he knocks on the door. No one answers. He opens the door, and he's hit by this like sewage smell, and the guy had literally was in the kitchen, passed out, pants around the ankles, and had shit all over my dad's kitchen floor. My dad is like, "Hey, none of your buddies are coming here ever again." Like this is wild, man. But anyway, yeah, Glenn and I were very close. I had talked about him, or I talked to him about SOFREP because he was supposedly going to Libya. It was going to be one of his last deployments.
And that's what Sean Lake said on the show with us.
Yeah.
And he said, this is it.
Yeah. And Sean was living in Glenn's house in Encinitas, and we were in Glenn's backyard talking about this. And yeah, it was super tragic. And again, like the whole way, the timing of that, and I was traumatized by it. I mean, his ex-girlfriend, who faked that she was a fiance at the funeral, tried to freaking come on to me when I was sleeping in his bed in the house. Like, it was just all sorts of crazy shit. And then like jumped on the hate Brandon bandwagon after I left. I got my truck and drove home at like 2 a.m. And just like all the media and the drama and everything, it was tough, man. I called, I don't know if Sean told you this, but I'd found out through one of my friends at the agency, because I heard the rumors and all his friends, like Sean included, were like, "Hey, what's going on with Glenn?" And I'm like, "Oh, I heard it's State Department guys." Like, and Glenn doesn't work for the State Department. And then I got into my Land Cruiser in the parking lot of San Diego Airport, that long-term parking, and I texted my friend, and he was like, "Hey, I'll call you in 5 minutes. It's not good." And then I just knew, and then he told me. And I cried for 20 minutes. And then I called Sean, and then Sean didn't believe me. He's like, "Look, I can hear it in your voice." And I was like, "Dude, you're going to get a knock at the door." I was like, "Just call me." And then he called me back, I think 30 minutes later. And it was like terrible. Media were camped out. It's like, just terrible. Like 6 a.m, camped out at the house.
Yeah, I was going to add, because that's, we didn't get it. Of course, we were all still working and we were at home yet, but how did is that what happened? Because that's what I heard, and I just never corroborated it. How did the media? I mean, they knew right then, and they were there like 24 hours like after the incident.
Oh yeah, it was. Wow. It was instantaneous. Like by the time I drove up to Encinitas, I think I went home and I went to see Sean. They were already there.
Wow.
And they were and then like knocking on the door the next morning at 6 a.m. The local news trucks just trying. It reminds me of that song "Dirty Laundry" by Don Henley. It's like these made up beautiful women with the freaking mic and the phone and the camera and the lights and just ready for the juicy drama news story. And so I just helped Sean fend him off.
Was Sean's with his wife at the time? Because I know Sean's wife is a reporter, so.
No, he was he may have been engaged to Heather, but she was for sure like a serious girlfriend at the time.
Because I'm like, she'd be able to handle.
No, well,
people, right?
she didn't want to get involved because she definitely helped. Heather was extremely helpful as well, and her and I kind of handled the blocking and tackling around the media, and so I lived at the house a few days until the nightmare ex-girlfriend like hit on me, and then I just stayed out of the house. But yeah, it was. But that's how it happened. It was because of the second Obama election. It was highly politicized, as Chris knows more than anybody. And yeah, it was just, and I had lost my best friend, and I'm like dealing with the press and everything. And it was tough. It was like a tough time. It took me a couple of years to get over that. I think that was harder for me. And also because being friends, and Chris knows this about Glenn, I don't think there's a person that would ever say a bad thing about Glenn. He just had that personality to him, where I look at my own self and in the community, like I figure I consider myself a good operator. I did a great job, but I either you really liked me or you fucking hated me, because I was the head of the instructor school. I had to send guys home, and I remember Eric Davis would be like, "Hey man, I got the student failed, but can you have the talk with him?" I'm like, yeah, send him on my office. Like, dude, you didn't meet the standard. Pack your shit and get out of here. And you don't win a lot of friends that way. But I was just like cut and dry. But Glenn just had a way about him that everyone loved the guy. And being his friend was like armor. It was armor for me, because he would just take. It was like freaking a chest plate, Yeah. He was very protective that way. And when I lost Glenn, I lost that. And yeah, I didn't have my fucking body armor anymore, to be honest.
I do remember when they came in, when they finally got to our place, and the movie actually did a great job showing that. And I remember, because I was like, hey fuckers, welcome to the party, finally here. And
yeah.
I remember the team leader, great guy, not our team leader from our base, but our country team leader, who was a former Force Recon guy and was a contractor that went to the blue side. Great guy. And him and Glenn both looked up at me and went like this. Just like, it's like, yeah, they're here. Like, yeah. But that, even then, even him flipping me off still made me smile. If that tells you anything about Glenn.
No, that's Glenn. Yeah.
And after what the fourth firefight we had been in, and it's just one of those things like, these guys, they know it's me. Glenn's flipped me off, but I know he's happy to be here. And he knows, he's like, Tano, just shut the I know he's saying that under his breath. Tano, shut the up.
Yeah.
There it is. But how did you, with the media and all that, I think they're, for being there right then, I mean, just no fucking ethics, no integrity. How did you fend them off? And how did you do that without losing your shit? Without just going, I don't know how I couldn't do
I mean, I think what helped is I was working in the media, and I had friends in the media like Buck Sexton, Andrew Wilkow.
Yeah.
And so I just knew like, look, that they're just essentially doing their job, and albeit it sucks.
Is that how they rationalize it, though?
I'm sure they. I'm guessing.
I mean, come on.
But yeah, it's just. Look,
I've experienced it in the media.
I mean, it goes back to I don't know when Don Henley wrote Dirty Laundry, probably in the 70s. But he's like, she'll tell you about the plane crash with a gleam in her eye. They're just, give me that dirty laundry, and they want to be the first to break the story, and they're kind of clawing their way up the local news ranks to go national. So
think of after school shootings, right? I mean, they're dealing with children who are experiencing the most traumatizing event, and hey, do you want to go on with Anderson Cooper?
Yeah.
Like that's how they work. So.
And
so I really don't like doing mainstream, and I consider all, Newsmax, Fox News, they're all in the same category to me, really.
No, it's, and I think the media and government in America need to change. Like, I think we need drastic overhaul of our political system, and the media has to do the same. I mean, we saw the media change at 9/11. It was when it became a 24/7 feed the machine news cycle. And, back to your question, Chris, I think I understood the media, and And I just was like firm and would just tell them to f off over and over. I was told like they would come and knock 30 minutes later. I was like, look, it's the same answer, you know, it'd be something different. But it was tough. You know, and I remember the funeral too. Like, I love Glenn. Glenn didn't want a funeral. He put it in his will specifically. We did it for his mom, Barbara.
And I'll mention this. I mean, you know, and Sean has mentioned it on the show, like, you guys paid for the funeral, not the State Department.
And that really pissed me off, Chris. Like, I was angry about that because
I was gonna. Can you go in? Because I was gonna ask you about that because we all knew that happened. We were all still working, but we knew that the State Department agency they weren't doing. We already saw the writing on the wall. They were going to do shit for us, and we knew. So
and what made it worse was that I saw the family paraded around the White House, and I think this is I think I get this right when I say Glenn's sister used to be super liberal, and you know they got. After the family got invited to the White House, your son, your brother's a hero, they kind of had their press moment. Then they just cast the family off. And that's when I think the family were like, oh, wow, we're like, they just don't give a shit anymore.
They don't.
And then I remember Sean and I having this conversation, and he was saying, look, this was after we went to Boston for the funeral. He's like, look, Barbara's stressed out. Like, she had to cover all the costs, like $50,000. I'm like, okay, where's the life insurance money?
Yeah.
Where's the government? Because the family told me that when they went to the White House, they say, don't worry about a thing. We're going to take care of everything. And that was like, you know, Hillary Clinton saying that stuff. And it was just terrible. And I was livid. And especially because then we started getting sources. We had a source with inside the State Department, an ex-military officer, that gave us Ambassador Stevens' personal diary, like, and was telling us like they were trying to cover up accountability around Benghazi, and that made it even worse for me. And I was like, they're trying to cover it up. They're f***ing the family over. This guy's a hero. I don't care who you want to vote for. This guy like gave his life for the country, and you can't even help his family bury him. Like, the mom is like stressed out because, you know, it was something around $50,000-$60,000 in funeral expenses. Yeah. And so, me and his friends paid for it, but I was pissed. And then, you know, Sean, hats off to Sean and the family. Like, they went after the agency, and I think it was, who was the CIA director, Chris? Do you remember?
At that time, it was, well, when it happened, it was Petraeus, and then it went to Brennan.
And Sean told me the story. They went to the CIA, and Brennan's aide, whatever, pointed out the fine print in the life insurance contract. He's like, look, you made the guy pay for life insurance. You mandated they pay for life insurance. Yeah. And then you're going to point to the fine print. It reminds me of these like Netflix, HBO privacy statements we sign. We don't even know what we're signing. Yeah. And you're going to not pay on a technicality. And he just said, look, there's right and there's wrong, and this is just wrong. And then he ended up, CIA paid not the full policy, but they ended up getting a lot of money, and a lot of other families, I think hundreds of families that were in similar situations, left totally hanging by the government. They got paid also. So that's the silver lining in this. And that's what I know Glenn would be smiling down from heaven going, okay, there's some good that came out of this. Like, you helped a lot of families.
That was Brandon Webb. If you want to dig back in the archives and listen to that full episode, it's episode 198. We talk about Bub, but we talk about a whole lot more as well. And speaking of Bub and Bubs, I learned about Bubs Naturals when I met Sean Lake while working with Brandon Webb at SOFREP. And he's been a friend ever since and has sponsored this show, which we greatly appreciate. And that's what helps us bring new content to you every week. And we very much celebrate Glenn Bub Doherty on this podcast. And the thing about Bubs and Bubs Naturals is that the namesake Bub was an adventure seeker, a river guide, skier, Ironman competitor, fitness fanatic, chef, gardener, handyman, and epic storyteller. Bub was a national hero, a Navy SEAL, as you guys know, who saved lives and was always the life of the party, as you could hear from that clip with Brandon. He became a friend to all who knew him, and that spirit lives on within each of us. So Bubs Naturals gives back 10% of all profits to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. Helping yourself and helping others go hand in hand. That's how they see it at Bubs, and that's why 10% of every purchase goes to charity. Now, they have great products, whether it's the collagen protein, the MCT oil powder. I love Hydrate or Die. If you're looking for something to hydrate with, but you don't want all that sugar that you're going to get in Gatorade or Powerade, you're fueling yourself with coconut water and other natural ingredients with Hydrate or Die. So check that out. Also, if you're looking to cleanse your body, if you're looking to get some of that water weight off, check out the apple cider vinegar gummies with the mother. They're the top of the line in the market for that. And I stand behind all of their products, as does Chris, of course. And that's why we work so closely with them. So check out bubsnaturals.com. As a first-time customer, you'll get 20% off when you use our special promo code BATTLELINE. That's bubsnaturals.com. For all the products I just spoke of and more, use the promo code BATTLELINE for 20% off. All right, we spoke about Glenn Bub Doherty, and another guy that this audience is very fond of is none other than Ty Woods, Tyrone Woods. Roan, you guys know about him. Pretty much everybody who listens to this podcast has seen 13 Hours, and someone who served with Ty in the Navy SEALs is Chris Beck, who we had on back on episode 153, also had back on another point, but this is from that particular episode if you want to dig back in the archives. And we're going to wrap up this Memorial Day special with Chris Beck talking about Ty Woods. As always, greatly appreciate all of you tuning in. Whether you're a new listener or you've been with us for a while, be sure to subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We check out your comments. We read your emails sent to us at battlelinepodcast@gmail.com. And God bless all of you, and I hope that you all enjoyed this Memorial Day. So let's end this great with Chris Beck talking about his memories with none other than Ty Woods. But these last two episodes being 10 years since Benghazi, we were celebrating the lives of these guys and commemorating the tragedy that happened. I was wondering with your age, your background, did you have any experience with Glenn Doherty or Ty Woods?
Yeah, Ty. Yeah, a lot. With both of them, yeah. Mostly at the Flag Frog, though.
Yeah, I think this audience would probably love to hear that because, this audience really reveres those two men.
Yeah, well, Ty was like the glue. He was, he'd bring people together, man. He was, and that's what I think was the greatest thing I could ever say about him was he was the glue. He brought everybody together and held them together and made everything make sense and made us proud and do good, And he was a partier too, And a lot of that was a Flat Frog. The Flat Frog was a bar down in Imperial Beach, California, just down the strand from the SEAL team commands. And it was a dumpy little bar. It used to be called the Far East Rock, and which was awesome because it would look, when you walked into there, you thought you were in Thailand. So you walked through the door, and then it had these big, thick curtains hanging, so you couldn't see inside, and people inside. It could be noon, 2:00 in the afternoon, and you thought it was midnight. It was just dark, and it looked just like a Thai bar. You'd have girls dancing and doing whatever, and just rock and roll and playing Metallica pretty much every song. It just, and then when you went in there, it was all team guys and all the girls and girlfriends or whatever, and it was just like, and it would always have kegs of beer in the back. It'd be like, hey, who bought the keg today? And be like, oh, SEAL Team 1, so-and-so just retired, keg. And you just go back there and everybody's got solo cups and just filling off the keg. When the keg ran out, we'd pass around a helmet, Bud's helmet, and throw money into it and fill it up and get another keg. Say, hey, Ty, bring out another keg. And give him a helmet full of money. But yeah, it was pretty awesome. And that's what I would say the best about Ty was he was just, and you need people like that, It's fun to have like that Olympic athlete who's just like, yeah, and that guy who's just a door kicker, And that would be like Craig Sawyer, who's another awesome guy. He was a team one with me, and he's like that hard charging door kicker guy. That's what he does. He's a point man. He just makes it happen. He goes, and he's always working on his gear and making sure everything's perfect. And that's what I liked about Craig so much, was the guy, everyone looked up to him at SEAL Team 1, because you would look at him and say, that guy is going to be a dev group soon. Because you would look at him, you knew it was like, that guy was so hardcore. He'd be doing on weekends, on Sunday morning, after church, he'd be out in the compound on the grinder with all his gear spread out and going through each piece of it and cleaning and setting it and saying, okay, there. Then he would repack all his bags, and then we'd work out and then just get a monster workout in. And the guy would do it all the time, So, and what I'm saying is Ty was like a hard charger, but he was like the glue. Craig was like that point man and just making stuff happen and just follow him. And then the glue would make it. You need all these guys. And you need a Bible thumper. That's like the platoons. I could point at all the platoons and just do names, all those names there. I could name every one of those guys and tell you where he fit in and like what his like attitude or what he acted like. Because every platoon has them. Every platoon has that point man hard charger like Craig. Everybody has a glue. Everybody has a Bible thumper. Everybody has a dirty guy, Dirty Dan from Dav Group, sniper dude. But there's always that dirty guy, and there's always like that, the really whack out weirdo, and that might have been me a couple times.
That's all for this episode of Battle Line Podcast. But we're always posting new content on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at Battleline Pod. That's an order. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes up every Tuesday. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Believe in yourself. Face all challenges head on. And as always, never quit.